The Honorable Dalia Palchik, elected 4 years ago. And the opponent, Mr. Brian Murphy. For school board at large, how many school board at large members are you able to vote for on the ballot? 3. Okay. And by the way, I saw something when you had the names of the candidates up there, because most of them, all of them had D's and R's. I want to tell you that in fact, other than for state senate, you won't see D's and R's. So you should be careful in terms of who you know. Make note. If you sample ballots, will help you, but only for the state senate and delegate will you actually see their respective political parties. All right, for school board at large, we have Brian McElveen, previously on the school board, and Saundra Davis. And again, if we could have had the room, we have invited 6 people, because 3 were endorsed by the Democratic Party and 3 were endorsed by the Republican Party. But we just didn't have the room, unfortunately, to do that. And for state senate, we have the Honorable Dave Marsden, who is the, I'm always mixing the numbers up. The 35th becomes the 37th. The 37th becomes the 35th. So we had a district that had included Senator Chad Peterson. His district got moved, and the district that Dave was in got moved. So now there'll be new numbers, so we get to have new candidates for state senate. And opposing him will be Mr. Vafiades, to get our contact record. Thank you very much. So this is a new one. And for Providence School Board, we have Mr. Karl Frisch, down on the left. Elected 4 years ago. And his opponent was Tony Sabio. We also have a new House district, 12th House district, and the Democratic candidate who is an incumbent, having moved her district here, is Holly Seabold. She cannot be with us tonight, and you'll have a chance to vote for her. She doesn't have an opponent, but write-ins are possible. So those will be the candidates, among the candidates you're going to have. We don't have time to talk about various funding or bond issues, but those are all on there, and so we do urge you to read the literature in terms of what will be actually on your ballots. So we have some rules here, which Gary is going to talk about, how we're going to do the session tonight.
Thanks, sir. So there are blue cards and green cards. There's no difference in the color. The color means nothing, but except, something about you. But choose a blue card or a green card, write down your question, deliver it to Irv. Irv and I will get together and figure out, the best way to ask questions. Certainly tell us if you know, which office the question is directed at, although Irv and I can figure that one out too. For the candidates, we'll start off with, brief 2-minute introductory statements. Tell us who you are, where you're from, why you're running, that kind of stuff, and then we'll get to the questions. And then at the conclusion, 1-minute concluding statements. Sound right?
For sure.
Okay, great.
And whatever questions asked, more than one candidate can respond to them, but we're not obliging all of you to respond, because if you did, we'll have only about 3 questions that we could ask tonight. So we will be fair in terms of you want to, but we won't do all of them there. All clear? One other thing here, so we have a lot of folks here who are not Mantuans. You're all welcome. Please come. Please buy a house here and stay here. So the questions, we're not going to discriminate which are the questions, but this certainly is something for the Mantua Citizens Association, and we have many members who are here to do that. So I think if we're all ready to go, all right. Arbitrarily, we're going to start off here with the supervisors for opening statements, and then we'll just switch back and forth.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. Good evening. I'm Dalia Palchik. I am your representative on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, representing the Providence District for these past 4 years. And before that, I represented you on the school board. So I know many of you, but a few new faces. I grew up right here in Mantua. My mom and family are here tonight. My little daughter is going to bed now, so she could not be here. But I grew up here in Mantua, born in Argentina. I graduated at Rocky Raccoon, Frost Middle School, and Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. Yay. Went on to study anthropology, work in international development, but I came home because this really is the best community in the world. And there's a lot going really well here, but there's a lot of work we still have to do. I serve as chair of our Health and Human Services Committee. I'm the chair of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. I serve on the Successful Children and Youth Policy Team, also known as SCIPT, and a few other regional commissions here. I love the work, I've loved serving. I was elected 3 months before the pandemic, so it's been an interesting term. But it has become very, very clear, not only are we a resilient and caring community, but we have an incredible team, from our staff to our nonprofits to our HOAs. A huge round of applause for Sue for leading so bravely for so many years. People say our job can be thankless, but there's nothing more thankless than an HOA president. I got started at the Woodburn Village Condo Association Board. And also, I belong to Olam Tikva, which is where my daughter goes to preschool. And this really is a very strong community. What I want to continue to do for the next 4 years with our board is continue to address the housing issue. We know that cost of living here for young families, for seniors on fixed incomes has become more and more difficult over the past 30 years. We as a board have already committed to a goal of 10,000 new units, affordable and workforce. So that's your teachers, your firefighters, your custodians, those who really work in our county can no longer afford to live here. So focus on that, focus on the environment. Today we celebrated 50 years of our tree commission. I know we have a lot of tree lovers here. We love growing up here. We love this, I call it the woods in the urban Fairfax. And so want to continue to protect here and to also think about the equity issues. There are parts in our community that do not have access to the parks and the trees and the trails that we have here. Number one, our amazing schools, ensure that we continue to fully fund them as we have. This is the reason so many of us, families as well as businesses, move here. I represent 90% of Tysons, and I can tell you so many of the CEOs say, continue to have excellent schools. That is what drives our business and our community to stay here. And so many initiatives, but from our mental health concerns, really pandemic and mental health, to our needs to ensure that we continue to be affordable for all while being more multimodal, ensuring transportation for everyone, trying to fight to save Metro right now. The state is not looking to help us with that, and that means that it'll be on your backs as taxpayers. So I'm being waved. So happy to answer more questions. A lot of great candidates here, and I just want to thank everyone who runs for office, who serves in office, who serves on boards. Thank you to Irv and Gary for hosting us tonight, and I look forward to your questions and the conversation. Thank you.
My name is Brian Murphy, and I began my career as a Fairfax County resident early on when my dad came down with the Kennedy administration. And we talk about affordable housing. What my dad did with the Kennedy administration was design the FHA home loan programs that everybody's using to make housing affordable where it used to be almost institutionally impossible, even though they promised everybody a home. They had no way of financially delivering on it until my dad and his gang came up with the underwriting for the FHA loan programs. From there, went straight through the Kennedy administration at a young age. Of course, we all trained up in the 70s, and I ended up overseas. I gained a deep, abiding love for this country, in contrast by finding myself in places like the Civil War in Beirut or the Soviet system in Leningrad in 1976. So I've come back with an abiding passion for comparative economic systems. I've watched America grow and change through that lens. And I'm very proud to have spent over 30 years in arguably the most elegant and sophisticated system in the world of promoting wealth creation through home ownership and real estate development and real estate appreciation. I've seen it go up and down. I've also had the pleasure of watching so many families that I've seen grow from their starter home to their second home, to their third home. I've watched their children go to the finest schools, matriculate to high school and on to college. It's just such an abiding and beautiful thing to watch, because we have a unique experience in all the world, where if you dream big and work hard, you can have a better future for your children. You can have a better future, a better present than the place that you came to America from. And I strongly believe in that, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that that promise stays alive for future generations. Unfortunately, I see that we're in the throes of a government that is trying to break that promise. It's trying to increase taxes so high that you can't save. And the children are going to schools, and I'll leave that up to my colleagues on the school board, where they're being taught things that are not consistent with the culture, the community, and the religion traditions of their families and their parents. So I'm running to try and bring some more robust economic development to Fairfax County, and to try and curb some of the spending that we have that has no place being in a local community. And instead, we're taking on federal government roles with the assisted housing and the transfer of wealth payments.
Yeah, please do me a favor.
I'm Saundra Davis, and I'm running for school board at large. And I am a military spouse, and we have lived in Burke for 12 years, and it's a good darn thing because I'm running at large and Burke's kind of in the middle, so anytime I have to go out campaigning, it's 30 minutes everywhere I go. I have 3 sons, and they all went to Robinson, and the youngest just graduated. And they're both, my 2 youngest are at Virginia Tech, and my oldest is an officer in the military. He's a 2nd lieutenant. But when you retire from the military, you get to pick one last move. You can go anywhere you want. And we decided to stay here, and the reason was for the schools. And I know that when COVID hit in March of 2020, it was frightening, and it made sense to close at that time. And I don't remember anybody being too upset about that, but by the time the fall came around and private schools started to reopen and schools in other states started to reopen, the parents really started paying attention to school board meetings to see when what the return to school plan was. And what we noticed was they weren't really talking about it as much as we thought that they should be. They were talking about other things. And the other thing that was noticeable quite quickly was that all 12 school board members and the superintendent were from the same political party. And I don't think a lot of people realized that. And I don't think groups function when everybody's from the same genre. I wouldn't like it if all 12 of them were from the other end of the political spectrum. So at that time, in order to try and get them to move along a little faster in their reopening planning, a group of parents started, we started a recall of some of the school board members. And from being on the streets and we collected 20,000 signatures. And I started my time in Fairfax County there because we were out in front of grocery stores and all around the county talking to parents. And during that time, parents would come up to us from countries like China, Cuba, Venezuela, and they would say, "Do you know what's happening in the schools?" And I did not know what was happening in the schools other than I had wished that they were open or had a plan to reopen. But combine that with what we were hearing organically on the street, and from then watching the school board meeting, you started to get some concerns. And so I am running because I think that this school board could use some diversity of thought. And I'm a moderate person. I actually used to be a Democrat, but my open school efforts kind of tempered that. I'm actually an independent, and I am endorsed by the Fairfax County Republicans as an independent. I am not a member of the FCRC, and I think I'm the first independent they've ever endorsed. I also have endorsements from the Fairfax County Parents Association, which is a bipartisan group, and from Senator Chap Peterson, who's a Democrat. So I have endorsements from both sides of the political aisle, and I would like to put kids first and keep them. We noticed that the other thing we noticed was I didn't realize that people ran for school board as a political stepping stone to higher office. And that was an interesting revelation to me. And I really just want to be there for the kids. So that's why I'm running for school board. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan McElveen, and it's great to be back in Mantua. I previously represented you all for 8 years on the school board, and anyway, it's great to be back. I'm a resident of McLean, and I'm actually a lifelong resident of Fairfax County. I went to Marshall High School, and then went off to the University of Virginia, like Dalia, studied anthropology, then went off to Columbia University, New York for my graduate degree. Moved back to Fairfax County because, like all 25-year-olds, I decided to run for school board. And so for the next 8 years, again, I was proud to represent you all on the school board. We did a lot of good things back then, but I want to turn your attention to just one thing. In the back right corner of the room here is a salad bar. It looks small, it doesn't look very ominous, but it's taken us 12 years to get there. So one of the first things I did when I got on the school board was start the movement toward fresh, healthier food. And I'm proud to say that this month, with the support in the past of Dalia, the support of Karl and the current superintendent, we finally made it to get to 198 salad bars in all of our schools. Another very exciting piece is that we are moving to scratch cooking as well. We're rolling out scratch cooking beginning this November in 2 of our 8 central kitchens around the county. But I digress on food, we have to come back to it later. Why I'm running for the school board again, you may think I'm crazy, but it's looking at what's happened over the past 4 years, it's been a very difficult and challenging time. And we now have 8 of the current board members leaving the board. So I looked at the political environment and saw that we really needed experience and a steady hand at the tiller on our school board, so I decided to come back. I am running alongside 2 other colleagues who, because of space, aren't here tonight, Il-Young Moon and Kyle McDaniel. And I would venture to say that all of us are here because we want to make sure that we successfully recover from the pandemic, make sure that students are getting the academic supports they need so that they can get back to grade level from the detriments they had during the pandemic. Also, mental health is very important to all of us, making sure that all of our students have access to mental health services. So I'll leave it there for now. Happy to chat more later.
Mr. Senator Marsden?
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. It's good to be here. I grew up just over on Woodburn Road in what's called Pine Ridge Precinct in the original Woodburn Elementary School, which was built in 1890. And when I was a little boy, men would come by and say, "Can I come in and look around? I went to school here in 1897. I said, "Yeah, sure, come on in." And they'd look around and say, "Nah, it doesn't look like the school anymore." But I graduated from Woodson High School, spent my career here in the county for 30 years working for our juvenile court, and the last 17 running our juvenile detention center, where we became a model for this country. The Justice Department would bring people from overseas to see the program that we'd started. It won the National Association of Counties Award for its education program to make sure that kids got their education from their home school by bringing the work in, rather than us playing school marm and just trying to teach general kinds of things, so that when they were released, they could go back to their school and be up with their work and not be tempted to drop out. Started the first sexually transmitted disease clinic for kids because we realized so many of our kids, up to 70%, had a problem. We were looking into eyes and ears and taking temperatures and what have you, when the real problem the kids had was that. And we brought in a gynecologist, and she was the one who got us started and diagnosed kids. We treated them on the spot and to make sure that the average length of stay was only a few weeks, but when we released kids that they were healthy. We also started the first secure mental health and substance abuse treatment in the Commonwealth of Virginia in a local juvenile detention home. And following my career in juvenile detention, I was appointed by 2 governors, Governor Gilmore and then Governor Warner, as Chief Deputy and Acting Director of Virginia's Department of Juvenile Justice. And while there, I think the most significant thing that I accomplished, we had 1,500 kids in 8 correctional facilities in 1997. When I left, we had about 1,200 kids, but we were on a different path. And today, there are 225 kids in 1 correctional center. And what we did in Fairfax with the treatment program I started, we reduced the commitments to reform school here in Fairfax from 121 down to 70 in 1 year. kept kids closer to home, near their families and counselors and ministers and friends, and it worked out very, very well. And when I got to Richmond, we went the route of science, which is where this country was going. We used to lock kids up to teach them a lesson. That didn't work. Didn't work at all. What we did was start to try to solve their problems and supervise them in the community, whatever we had to do. If we had to go visit them every day, and it reduced recidivism. And today, the 121-bed Fairfax County Juvenile Detention Home has probably 25 kids in it because we're supervising them in the community, and it's reduced juvenile crime dramatically. I'm the only member of the General Assembly to have ever run a state agency. I think just a couple of the accomplishments that I have in the legislature is I am the creator of our medical cannabis industry in Virginia. I got a letter from a little girl about 10 years ago who was a medical refugee in Colorado with intractable epilepsy. We built a program from there, and today it's a multi-million-dollar, hundreds of jobs, and providing symptom relief to people for all kinds of disorders by using properly used cannabis products. I'm also the author of the Virginia Data Privacy Act, and we've been copied almost word for word, the bill that I wrote, in 12 states around the country. I'm honored to serve, was to continue to serve. I served in the House. I replaced Senator Ken Cuccinelli when he became Attorney General, been there 14 years, and would appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve. I'll be the senior finance person in the Senate from Northern Virginia if I'm reelected. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Mark Vafiades, also running for the State Senate in District 35. Dave and I have been to so many forums together, I think the next time we're going to introduce each other. So, again, my wife and I'm Mark Vafiades. We live in Annandale, just right down the road from here. Beautiful, beautiful community. A little about me, I work in the healthcare industry. I have for the last 20 years, specializing in administering electronic medical record systems. I did it in California and then worked for Health and Human Services doing it there as well. I'm now a contractor for the federal government working on a proprietary electronic medical record system. In my career, I have worked for the federal government, I've worked for the state government, and I've even owned my own small business. When I lived in California, I was a reserve Los Angeles County Sheriff's Deputy, and I worked in patrol for 20 years. Also, I have been an advocate for citizens and families regarding how legislation affects citizens and families, especially economically. And I have spoken to most of the people in the district, and they have highlighted, and I'm highlighting 3 issues specifically. Number 1 is crime. Unfortunately, there has been an increase in crime. Fairfax is in good shape, relatively speaking. However, even in Fairfax County, crime has gone up a lot. We need to get that under control. There's a lot of spillover from Washington. There's been a lot of anti-police rhetoric in the past, in the recent past. There's also been, as you know, the defund the police movement. This has been very bad for police departments, for morale. The number of police officers working now is a lot less. It's hard to recruit people. So again, that's a big issue. Number 2 is education. And if nothing else came from the lockdowns, parents got a chance to see what was going on in the classrooms by way of Zoom meetings. And they were not necessarily happy with that. Many parents went to school board meetings and they felt that they were not welcome. And I'll leave the details of that to the school board candidates, but again, that's a big issue for me as well. I think parental rights is primary, and if it can't be done on a county level, I think in Richmond, I would like to introduce a bill to give parental rights primacy at the state level. Number 3 is the economy, high taxes and the high cost of living. This is another thing we need to get under control. There are a number of reasons why that has happened, especially in Fairfax County. Taxes have gone up tremendously in the last 4 or 5 years. If you own a house, real estate taxes have gone up 40%, 50%. The car tax is just unbearable. The car tax in Fairfax County is equivalent to the real estate tax on a home in many other states. And it's just too much. In California, 20 years ago, Governor Gray Davis was recalled and kicked out of office because of the high car tax in California. And that's when Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger was the Terminator, was elected in California. So again, these are some of the priorities that I'm highlighting now. I'm looking forward to your questions, and thanks for having us.
Hi, my name is Tony Sabio. Sorry if my throat sounds a little weird. I just got back from overseas and came back with something, but I wouldn't miss this for the world. So a little bit about me if you don't know me already. I grew up in Southern California to a biracial family. Mom is Latino, my dad is Asian, Filipino. I grew up in a very progressive school. And what helped me go through that and build me up was the mentors that put me into the military, that saw more. That got me into special operations. And from there, they saw even more in me. And that pushed me into the Secret Service. And that started my journey here in 2002 in Virginia. And ever since then, I stayed here. From there, I got recruited into the CIA. And then spent a decade going back and forth into the Middle East, protecting our rights, our freedoms, and protecting our kids and protecting you. But then something happened. I started seeing discourse. I started seeing separation within our communities. I started seeing separation within our country. And I thought to myself, why am I going overseas protecting our country? We need to do something here. Our leaders aren't doing it. So I moved in the private sector, built up shop over here in Fairfax, opened my company over here. And right now I'm a security consultant, advisor. And I go overseas to take care of a lot of things. I also do things with private schools, also synagogues up in Northwest, devising emergency action plans, providing mitigations for threat analysis that I find. Then I thought, why am I not doing things over here in my own county when I see what's happening? And like many people, Uvalde really opened eyes to a lot of things, to mental health, to the lack of security that we had, the lack of training. And couple that with Nashville and the lack of security we had there when we had a locked door, but it was made out of glass. And I thought, I was going to the election on November 7th, and someone came up to me and said, would you volunteer and help out? I said, sure, why not? I'm part of this community. Then he asked me, would you run? First, I was reluctant. I'm not a politician. I don't want to be a politician. I just want to be a community member. But then talking to a lot of people and seeing what I can provide to the school board, where the school board currently does not have anybody with this type of mentality, this type of worldview, this type of knowledge and skills. Why not give this out? So I decided to run. And as I talked to a lot of people and hearing them, the concerns, and seeing them and talking with everyone from across the aisle, independent, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter to me. I talk to anybody. I started hearing them and what they're asking for. What I want to do is make sure everyone's safe. I see too much divisions happening right now. We're divided by these things that we make so big, but we lose reality of what the mission is and the vision is to protect our schools, protect our community. And if we focus on that and cross the aisle and look at everybody with a common goal, we can collaborate. I can tell you that I'm proud that I talk to a lot of Democrats and I listen to them, I hear their ideas, because they actually go through a journey that developed their worldview. And so I learn from them, and I tell them about my worldview and where I come from, and talk to them about how we collaborate. And that's what we're gonna do, and that's what I'm gonna do on the school board, I can promise you that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Karl Frisch. I am the Providence District Representative on the school board. I want to thank Sue and Gary and Irv for having us. It's nice to be back with MCA. If you've not been inside of Mantua Elementary School before, welcome. The salad bar is delicious, and Senator Marsden said, but did the kids actually eat it? The answer is yes. Maybe not as much as I'd like, but they do. I grew up in Southern California as well. Lots of us from Southern California find our way here. My dad was a LA County Sheriff's deputy, and my mother was a waitress. And I learned from them the importance of hard work. And fast forward a couple decades, and I worked in Washington on the House Rules Committee in Congress. I ran a nonprofit consumer financial protection watchdog, and in 2019, when Supervisor Palchik decided not to run for re-election to the school board, my partner, who's been an educator in the system for almost 20 years, said, you complain about it enough, why don't you do it? And so, a few days later, I was gathering signatures, and I see some of the people here that I got signatures from that first week on the campaign trail. And it has been an eventful several years on the school board. And I'm running again, and people ask me why I'm running again, because I think we need to focus on what's critically important to students, and that is continuing to close learning gaps from COVID, but also continuing to invest in academic achievement, whether that's our literacy programs that we've transformed over the last 2 years, whether it's advanced math for our middle schoolers, which is a pipeline to higher education. I want to also invest in our educators. Tomorrow night, the state was late with our budget, but tomorrow night the school board is voting for a mid-year 2% increase for all staff, which is exciting. But it's a drop in the bucket about what they deserve and the need to transform the sales pitch around entering the profession of teaching. I also think it's extremely important that we continue to focus on making sure our schools are safe and inclusive. That means continuing the school division's gun violence prevention measures and making sure that every student who comes through the doors of any of these schools, whether it's Mantua, Frost, Woodson, whatever, that they don't carry the baggage of the world from outside when they enter, and that they can focus on what's important in these buildings, and that's learning. And finally, I think it's important that we talk about mental health. We have in our school system right now offering all high school students free telemental health services. If you've tried to find mental health services for your kids in the last few years, you've no doubt had trouble finding in-person services. And so the school division, with parental permission, will provide those services to high school students. And as a result of a motion that I put forward during our last budget, we're investigating doing the same with parental permission for our middle schoolers and for our staff, because they need the support too. So I'm not interested in the games. I like to get stuff done, and I like to have an impact. And so I've spent my 4 years on the school board getting things done for this community, and I'm excited to do more, in the next 4 years. Over the last several years, we've brought more than $300 million into Providence District for security upgrades, construction projects, renovations, new roofs, new water, new plumbing, new bathrooms, new playgrounds, new athletic facilities, and we need to continue to do those kinds of things in our district. Thanks.
Great, so we'll start with a question that a lot of people had on school board. So the rankings of Mantua, Frost, and Woodson have dropped over the recent years. And one question is, what processes are in place or should be in place to monitor that? And then a second question around that is, what is something that you would do to make schools better? And then, what is your number one priority on day one?
Let's give this for the Providence School Board folks first.
Thank you. That's a two-part question. So we definitely have to keep track of what's happening. And what we're seeing is there's just not enough resources going out. I talked to a lot of parents, a lot with special needs, not enough going towards that. It's very lacking. Second to that, we do have a large minority, and English as a second language is just not there. We need to put more money into the teachers. I mean, we talk about a 2% raise, but yet we have currently right now a superintendent that's making $380,000 a year plus benefits. I want to see where that money's going. Why is that money not going to our teachers? We got to attract new teachers here because that's going to help out. We got to put the forefront in the backbone of what the schools are, and that's the teachers. Right now we have an imbalance. We have 88% increase over the past couple of years in our gatehouse administrators. Only a 7% increase in schools as far as teachers. So we need to change that imbalance. And what we're going to do, day one, we're going to do a full complete audit. We haven't done a complete audit. We've done partial audits. We're going to do a full complete audit, third party. They're going to come in, they're going to show me. They're going to show all of us, where's the money going? Then we're going to prioritize based on the community. And I know what the community wants. Then we need more stuff for special education. We need more stuff for English second language students. And we need to gear towards that. And once we do that, we're going to redistribute, we're going to reallocate, we're going to slash positions over in Gatehouse. And we're going to give that money to the teachers. We're going to give that money to these food service workers that actually put this wonderful salad bar together that makes, on average, $15,000 a year. That's ridiculous. That's not even minimum wage. So we need to refocus, we need to end this bloated administration, we need to reduce that down to bare minimum, shift some of those positions over to Fairfax County, and we need to put the money where it belongs, into the schools.
Well, I'm glad we agree that the schools need more money. Look, there was a report that came out earlier this year from JLARC, the Joint Legislative Audit Commission, and it says that schools in Virginia are underfunded to the tune of billions of dollars a year. And what that comes out to for Fairfax County is hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. We have a huge budget as a school system, but it does not give us what other school divisions in other states surrounding us are spending per pupil. More than 90% of our budget already goes to pay and benefits for our staff. And as to what the superintendent makes, when I saw that number, I was shocked as well. But if you want the best, you've got to recruit and offer packages that recruit the best. And you go around the country and look at what it costs to recruit somebody who can run a school system with a more than $3 billion budget, and that's what they're paying in school divisions across the country. So if you want to pay somebody $100,000 to run FCPS, we'll see who you get. But the way that you're going to retain and recruit educators is not just with the money. Anybody who's ever spoken to a teacher will tell you it's not just about the paycheck. It's about respect on the job. It's about finding creative ways to make their lives a little bit easier. And I've done that on the school board. We've raised pay the last 2 years, but we've also tried to find creative ways to help them out. I know from my work in Washington as a consumer financial watchdog that we have a program at the Department of Education called Public Service Loan Forgiveness. During the Trump years, 90% of educators were rejected from the program even though they qualify. And so I put forward a motion that said, we're going to help our educators with student loans get into that program so that they can be discharged from their student loans after 10 years of service in our school system. That will help them feel better about their standing, not only in our schools, but also when they go home at night. You've got to get creative because I don't think we're going to get the money we need from Richmond anytime soon, especially with the way that the last budget went, to give them the pay that we truly need. We are competitive in the region, but we need to be leading the region in order to really compete. So 2% right now, tomorrow, I think that's great. We need to do even more in the budget that's coming up, and we need to transform the sales pitch around teaching, because it can't just be, come, you will love working with the kids, but you won't get paid what you need, you won't get the benefits you deserve, you won't get the respect you deserve. And you know what, you talk to most educators and they will tell you that they feel like they've been under attack for the last 4 years. That's why they're leaving the profession. It's not just money.
We appreciate the passion. If you guys be more as concise as possible, we can ask more questions, which is what we're all here to do. So just to make a change up, we're going to go to another office, but we'll have questions, chances to do more.
All right, this one is for State Senate. And the question is, we all heard that there's a casino on the potential horizon for Virginia and specifically maybe in Fairfax County. What's your position on that? Do you think it's good for the county, and how would you vote?
Thank you. Nobody likes gambling, but that cat is out of the bag, that horse is out of the barn. We're having huge amounts of people who are gambling online on sporting events and in the lottery, in our local convenience stores and grocery stores. We're having gray machines pop up in bars and convenience stores where people are playing what are called skill games. And the problem we're having here in Fairfax County, one, we're losing $150 million a year to MGM across the river in Maryland. Secondly, our commercial real estate market is beginning to deteriorate and has been deteriorating dramatically. We can't fill office space. These leases are expiring, and people who wanted 50,000 square feet now want 10. People who had 10 want 2. People who had 2 want none. We're concerned that Tyson's Corners is going to become a ghost town. at some point. We have depended on those real estate taxes paid by these tenants to fund our schools and our public safety and our mental health system and social services here in Fairfax County. Things are changing, folks. Things are changing dramatically. And what I have worked with some developers on the Silver Line, which was developed with special taxes on the business community for high-density development. And what I would like to see the county have an option to make a decision on is to have a conference center created in Tyson's Corners, along with an entertainment district anchored by a casino and some hotels, so that people could fly into Dulles, which has the highest rates of any airport in the area and is underutilized, to be able to come in and go 12 minutes on the Silver Line and have a conference in a place where they can go and be entertained. There's going to be not only a conference center, but also a venue that can do major league types of concerts. We have to rethink our economy. This can bring people over to that entertainment conference center from Potomac, Bethesda, Gaithersburg, Northwest DC, who would rather come here than go all the way to Prince George's County in Maryland. All we're talking about here is a referendum to make you, the citizens, make up your mind as to whether you want a casino and all of these other facilities here in Fairfax County. My job in the Senate, I'm on the Senate Finance, Economic Development, and Natural Resources Committee, is to provide you with options. You make the decision, not us. But we're a Dillon Rule state, and you can't even consider this without authority from the General Assembly. My job is to provide my local government with options and things to consider. We have lost, I believe we're down to 65% on our LCI, our local composite index, down from 75. Arlington and Alexandria are at 80. Now, that 65 is a great score because we'll get more state money, but it also tells you what's happening with our economy. And I don't want to see the burden put on homeowners, on car owners, or anyone else. I want to provide this county with options to choose from to improve the economic vitality of Fairfax County and keep it where it needs to be.
I myself have seen gambling casinos in various states, and it's not a pretty sight. I'm not for gambling. I'm not for casino gambling. I'm not for the state sponsoring this and bringing up a bill. I don't think that if we're having tax revenue problems that we should put this on the backs of those who can least afford it, because the people that tend to go to those casinos could be spending their paycheck hoping to make more of it and lose it all. If you look at the parking lots of some of these casinos, they're not all Mercedes and Bentleys and so forth. They're cars that are 10, 15 years old. So I don't like the idea of casinos because, again, the people that can least afford it will be spending all their money there. Having said that, if there's a referendum, not from the legislature, but the people in the district, if they want a casino, then I would not stand in their way. Again, I'm not for it. I wouldn't promote it. I wouldn't introduce a bill to have casino gambling, but if there's a bill out there already and the people in the district want it, I would not stand in their way. Local rule.
All right, this question is for supervisors. There's been an increase in crime in this neighborhood and other neighborhoods around it. There's been a prosecutor the last couple of years who has not been prosecuting crimes, and there's over 200 open jobs in Fairfax County Police. So what would you do as supervisor to deal with the crime problem in Fairfax County?
Let's start with Brian.
All of my siblings have been police officers at one time or another. Being from just outside of Boston, I have a very large Irish Catholic clan. Almost all of them are police officers. So I've seen what that profession is like from the front of the badge and behind the badge in the families at the kitchen tables. I think we need to focus on how are we going to support our peace officers in the best possible way. One of the things, I went to an interview with the Police Benevolent Association the other day, and they were asking me things like, should animal control officers have police powers? And you know, I'm kind of a contrarian. I'm a chief financial officer, I'm a corporate workout specialist, so I look at things a little differently. And I look at this approach as, does anybody have any idea just how much a liability incident costs every time we give a man a gun and allow him lethal force? It's extraordinarily high. And if you look at it through that lens, then we need to be more judicious about who gets to carry a gun. Animal control wardens don't need to carry weapons. So we need to be judicious about that and support the officers with high training, a lot of emotional support, and we also need to lead them out in the proper organization. For example, another statistic a lot of people don't know about is that one of the highest fatality incidents for police officers is responding to domestic calls. And there's a way in which we can adjust the rules of engagement, if you will, so that we can minimize those statistics. But I think somewhere between bringing us up to a full complement of police officers, and I probably should have led with this, but the easiest and best way to deal with crime is to prosecute the criminals. I talked to a number of, thank you. I talked to a number of officers while I've been getting around in the community, and I just find them discouraged at the revolving door that the Commonwealth's attorney has created in Fairfax County. They go in harm's way to arrest a criminal, only to see them on the street the next day flipping them off and telling them there's nothing you can do to me. Now another thing, and I'm going to wrap it up with this, we need to be very careful about the ramifications of these increases in crime. I will tell you this, victims are not statistics. To a victim, the trauma they've experienced is all that matters. It doesn't matter that people lump them into a percentage of increases or anything like that. The victims are where we should focus all of our effort in making sure that it doesn't happen to anybody else. The last thing is that, and this is a very big issue, but the thing that we need to focus on is how do we effectively deal with crime? How do we appreciate the invisible impact that it's going to have on all of our insurance policies? For example, we have Safeways that are closing one of their store entrances to try and control the shoplifting. Well, it won't be long before that translates into very much higher prices. Right now it's disguised with the general inflation, but the losses that these grocery stores and all of the retailers are experiencing will be passed through to us. And so we need to get on top of it, we need to get out ahead of it, we need to try and design out as much of the incidents of crime as we can. It begins with the prosecuting from the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. It begins with upgrading and filling out a full complement of our police forces.
First of all, I want to clarify that Fairfax County, and this isn't our statistic, we are the safest jurisdiction of our kind across the nation. This is coming from the National Police Chiefs Association. And when we talk about police chiefs, I think I've got one of the best ones. And to clarify, that is the role of a supervisor. I'm not running for Commonwealth's attorney. If you're interested in that, you can go look at that race. We are here as supervisors. I am endorsed by the Southern Police Benevolent Association. It's the first time I've been endorsed by police, because they know that the work we are doing in this county is what's going to continue to keep us safe and address those issues. And data statistics do matter. Our chief showed us the statistics recently. Not only did last week we graduate one of the largest and the most diverse and the most local and the highest rate of women in a graduating class for our police academy, which is absolutely in the right direction. We know that we have recruitment challenges. We have focused on bonuses, we have focused on pay, but we know pay is a part of it. the ability to live here, the ability to be treated well, the ability to have the supports we need. Has absolutely been shared here. It is not just about enforcement. Enforcement's important, but those police officers, and I've gone on ride-alongs, I meet with them, I've worked with many captains and many of our police officers. The majority of calls they get are for mental health issues. So we have created an extremely successful pilot program that we are now growing on co-responder models, having mental health professionals go with our police officers because they have different trainings, they have different things they're looking at, and whether they're going to a home not knowing what's going to happen when they open that door, going to protect our small businesses, our malls, our synagogues, our faith communities, our schools, absolutely it takes that full network. So we have and continue to train the most experienced police officers, mental health not officers, but specialists, and continue to look at the programs and the data and what actually works and what actually helps reduce crime. It's the community associations that we have here and your excellent relationship with our Mason District Police Station, and that continuing to do that, ensuring that you have that support. It's continuing to ensure that we in the community have safe housing, transportation, the services we need to help those individuals who are dealing with more and more mental health issues than we have ever seen in our county and in our country. And so it's all of those together, absolutely. And what we do here in Fairfax County, from ensuring that our kids from a very young age have the supports they need, that their families have the supports they need, that our schools have the supports they need. It is an entire ecosystem, and that our public safety officers, whether they are addressing a call about deer or a stray dog or a break-in or a concern on mental health, that they have the support they need, that they have the rest they need, and that they know where to call if they need additional help. And so absolutely, that's what it takes. We will continue to work in that direction. It's been really tough. Our public safety officers and our mental health and our teachers have been some of the hardest hit professions, and we have to pay them, we have to get state support, we have to get federal support, and that's what we continue to do here. And lastly, if across the state, across the Commonwealth, the Community Services Boards, which is what deals with our highest needs in mental health, funded their services the way we do here in Northern Virginia, we would be closing mental health hospitals. We would not be having a bed shortage. And that is what we need to continue to do and invest in. Thank you.
For school board at large, can you explain the local composite index and then address how you would deal with underfunding schools and living within the restraints of school underfunding?
So thank you. So I had the privilege of serving as the school board's state legislative liaison for 8 full years, working with colleagues like Senator Marsden and others. And that is challenging work because every year the school system has to come up with its top legislative priorities and promote them at the state level and try to get them through the state legislature. We were very successful with a lot of what we did, but one of the things that always hampered us was the LCI. I'm glad to hear we're down to 65. We were up in the 70s when I was on the board. But what that means is,
They don't want you to talk about the LCA.
there we go. Okay. But what that means is that we get the higher the LCI is, the less state funding support we get. So in a way, it is good news that it's going down, but it's bad that our local revenues are declining. So anyway, I'll just talk briefly about local revenues, and because that's an important part of what we do here in Fairfax County. And I'll point in particular, going back to the previous question for school board, about one of my top priorities, which is to work on the bond allocation for our school system. This fall is the school bond, and I do hope you support that. But we are far below the bond allocation we need to get our schools back on a 25-year renovation cycle. Every two years, I think we bring in about $210 $1 million for renovations, but in reality, we need at least 273 to get our kids out of trailers to get back on a 25-year school replacement cycle. So that's going to be one of my top priorities.
So the school board talks a lot about Richmond and what they're not doing, but when I get there, I want to talk about what we can do. Tony was right. The school board hasn't had an independent audit in over a decade. They're asking for more bond money, but there's been previous 2 bonds on the ballot that have passed for a high school in the western part of the county that still does not exist. Like I mentioned, all 12 school board members are from the same political party, so instead of having a contentious relationship with Richmond, what I could do is actually, I do have a little bit of a relationship with Richmond. I can probably help you find some money. It just takes communicating and being open instead of contentious with who's in charge down there. You know, we talk about the inequities, and what concerns me is that I think it was around 2016 when the One Fairfax policy was passed between the school board and the Board of Supervisors, and since then, test scores have gone down, 21 points plus on the SATs. We're 50th in reading in 4th graders. Yes, below Mississippi. So I don't think that the things that they're trying to do are helping. The other thing is that they were talking about teachers feeling attacked, and I don't know any parents who attack teachers. I know they're upset with the school board, and the teachers come to me. I have my own tent, and I'm out at community events for the last year and a half, plus before that, recalling school board members. So they come up to me, and they're talking about not having enough planning time, and feeling like there's too many people at Gatehouse and not enough actual teachers. And they also tell me that they're uncomfortable with the fact that professional development goes through the chief equity officer instead of the chief academic officer. So a lot of the teachers ending up leaving because they're not comfortable in the situations that they're in. And the special ed community, the special ed teachers are in trouble too, because there was temporary COVID funding, and they used that for recurring salaries instead of one-time expenditures. So when that money runs out, the 7% increase they gave to special ed teachers, they don't have funding to replace that. So there's a lot of stuff going on that I would like to be part of the solution. And I don't know all the answers. I'm not an educator. I'm not a politician either, but here I am. I feel like I go to the working sessions and I participate on that level. I haven't been to them lately in person because I'm campaigning, but I do listen online when I can't go. And so I just want to be part of that process and bringing up these points in the conversations when they're meeting together. Thank you.
All right, we're going to do a state senate question, and then we'll do a supervisor question, and then if there's time left, we'll get to more school board. State senate. The Supreme Court overturned the Roe versus Wade decision, and so now it's back to the states and the people to decide, what to do about abortion. So, question is, what is your view? What should be state policy on abortion?
So when Roe versus Wade passed in, I think it was 1973, the point of it was to have legal, safe, and rare abortions. And between now and then, they have gotten hugely amount more, and the abortions are going basically right through till the 9th month. So there has been an extreme on one side. We have two sides of the aisle now. We have one that says there should be no abortions, and we have one side that says there should be abortions all the way through and including the 9th month. So if there's a compromise, what would that look like? I think Governor Youngkin has the perfect solution. I am totally in favor of Governor Youngkin's 15-week abortion bill because it allows for abortion, as it is now, through the 15th week. And then after that, you could have an abortion if it's rape, incest, or life of the mother. I think that's a very compassionate compromise, and that's what I am in favor of.
Thank you. Very difficult and contentious issue. Here is the law in Virginia right now is Roe v. Wade, which allows for a woman to make that choice up to the first 26 weeks. This 9-month abortion thing just doesn't happen. It is. There are times we're talking about a child, who a doctor, and it takes 3 doctors to approve a 3rd trimester abortion in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that's because something has gone tragically wrong. These aren't people who are having an abortion for convenience. They've decorated a room. They've named a child. And this horrible thing is happening to them. And we have a heck of a time, funding the needs of children who are born with severe disabilities. And this is a personal decision for a woman to make with her medical professional, her doctor. And I believe we need to enshrine, the Supreme Court has given it to states to make this decision, and I think we need to enshrine what was working very, very well in this country, which is Roe v. Wade. And we need to enshrine that in our Constitution and be done with this constant problem of dealing with abortion. Because here's what's going to happen. The governor's compromise of 15 weeks, that sounds very inviting, but there are so many candidates running in this state who have pledged to do 100% bans. In other words, never and no exceptions, rape, incest, anything. And what happens is the bill comes to a committee for 15 weeks, and somebody raises their hand, Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment. And the amendment is to change 15 weeks to to full term, no abortions, no nothing. How do you do that when you know you're going to get run against in a primary the next year because you didn't support 100% abortions, probably as a Republican candidate? And all of a sudden on the floor is a full, complete ban. That's the danger of bringing these things up and putting them in a committee structure that can change the nature of that bill in a heartbeat and get it to the floor, and who knows what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to be in charge of our legislature next year, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. It may be both. Right now the House is in Republican hands, the Senate's in Democratic hands. Folks, we need to be very, very careful with this. What's been working since 1973 in Virginia needs to continue. Thank you.
All right, the questions for supervisors are 2 questions that are sort of the flip side. One is a question about the county losing tree cover, and what's going on between McElveen and the Beltway and Innova about the lack of trees. And the other side of the question is, many people in this community want to keep vacuum leaf service, and will you support them?
Well, thank you. I'm happy to have both sides of that question, talk about complex issues. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, we were at the 50th anniversary today, this week, of the Tree Commission here. It was also not long ago, Karl and I were here in the backyard planting trees for the 40th anniversary of Fairfax County being a national tree city here. We're not a city, but excellent work. And what we heard this morning, talking about history, is that back in the day, post-Civil War, post that, where we are now had very, very little tree cover. It was taken down to build fires, to feed people, for milk cows. We were one of the dairy capitals of the nation. And the work that was done before our boards, decades ago, when it was land use, there was no protection of those trees. We weren't thinking about the tree cover. The county was not focused on that. They were just focused on building, and really why stormwater is so expensive, why it costs $1 million to build a sidewalk now. I know that's one many of us here are passionate about, is because these are things we really care about now. Protecting us from stormwater and tree cover. And actually, talking about facts, what was shared today is that there was a goal set by, back then, Chairman Connolly, to have 40% tree cover. We've reached 51% tree cover in this county. And we're going for 60 and beyond. The second thing about that is the equity piece. Because in this part where I was so fortunate to be able to grow up, sadly because there had been an oil spill, but luckily in this beautiful neighborhood, is that we have this excellent tree cover. I was in Oakton last week, amazing tree cover. I now live in the Falls Church part of our community, close to Annandale, and we do not see on Route 1 that same level of tree cover. And when we talk about equity, we also need to talk about equity and access to the environment and to the trees, and that is something we continue to focus on. When you look at Tyson's, and I helped build this Tyson's Community Alliance, Tyson's has better stormwater than it did. We're actually building on those parking lots. We're planting trees. We are requiring so much more of that beyond what is, as much as is allowed, and continue to advocate in our legislative authority to be able to do more. We have passed the bamboo ordinance because those invasives and those bamboos, and some of you know, take over not just your yard, but your neighbor's yard. I was at, there's someone, she's here in the back, there she is, Celeste, showed me her backyard. 12 homes that had been taken over by bamboo. And it costs thousands of dollars and thousands of dollars to take that down and to plant and allow the natives and the good tree cover to take over. So that is critical, and that's something we continue to do. We can't do it alone, so we need to continue to work with our businesses. We have many goals set aside and fund and bring in federal funding. Right now, we're looking at IRA funding and others to be able to do more of that. On the flip side, and to me, process is really important. I don't think that the process and our staff have the best intentions and they do their research. I don't think that the process that was started to talk about the issues and why they were looking at leaf collection was done well. And that's why we've absolutely asked them and have put a pause on it. If and when that it does come up again, it needs to be more clear what and why. I cannot go to my colleagues who are only 5% of the county and only some of our districts have vacuum leaf collection and say, oh, your residents need to cover our costs. We can't do that. So we need to understand what the true costs would be to continue to do that. I know I heard from many of you, what are the true costs? And we still haven't gotten those back from the county. What would it take to have a sustainable program? I know, it kept me up many Thanksgivings. I've run the turkey trot. How do we not have those leaves on the street? Why isn't it working? What are the machine problems? What is the workforce problems? And why can't the county get it right? And if we're going to continue the service, we need it to be self-funded. It cannot come out of the general fund, and it needs to be sustainable and functional, because we cannot have the safety hazard of having leaves out in the street. There are a lot of issues on the environment and the way that is being done. That is another part of the conversation that needs to be there. So we have absolutely, and we said, there's a lot of missing information. We heard from you. We heard from a large part of the community, especially Mantua. Some other parts that have it had different feelings about it. You are fortunate to have a lot of tree cover, but it has to be done right and it has to be sustainable, and we need to know what those models are. So I don't think we had that. I don't think you received that. So I apologize that that was not shared appropriately, that the right information was not shared. The best intentions were there, but process is critical, and that's what makes government and local government work. So if it were to come back, it needs to have that full information, and we need to hear your thoughts as we did before, and it needs to be clear before it comes to the county. Thank you.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to step back from the warm, fuzzy feeling of hugging trees and look more at the practicality. I am running for the Board of Supervisors. I do want to work the system to provide the services to the communities. One of the things that Dalia said that's true, that resonates with me, is the safety issue of tree leaves, wet tree leaves on the streets. I don't know if anybody here has ever skidded on the wet leaves and whatnot, but they are a definite traffic hazard. So it's part of a public facility that has been a tradition that we have been collecting the leaves, and we have, as I understand it here in Mantua, you are assessed a fee for getting this done. And I'm in complete favor of that. I love the trees, and let me just speak from experience. I've actually been in the Sahara Desert, so I know what it looks like to have absolutely no trees and what it feels like. I've also told people as I travel the world that our GW Parkway is like the 8th wonder of the world. It's the most civilized use of riparian right-of-way that I've ever seen. So we have kind of a balance that we have to strike between tree cover and our use as citizens. The first thing that comes to mind, and I have this situation going on right now, I'm trying to get solar panels on my roof. But the community, the HOA, and the neighbors have trees that are blocking my sun. And so I can't get solar power. I'd love to be green, but you can't, there's nothing can be done. I'm at a default loss on that. And that's just my personal vignette on it, but I think at the end of the day, from my developing experience, I know that we have to plant trees for tree cover when we do a development. We need to look into that to make that more effective. We need to find solutions that work in a systemic way to protect the beauty of places like Mantua. From the moment I was an election officer in this room 8 years ago, I've always referred to Mantua as the Hobbit Shire with square doors, because you have such a beautiful community here, and so idyllic. And we've got to be careful on how do we preserve that, how do we preserve the way that we can all live with quiet enjoyment in our homes, and at the same time address issues like places where we don't have tree cover, which are the function of large developments and whatnot, that we need to make those plantable or have them restore the tree cover.
Irv says that was the last, this is the last question. And just so you know, the last question was also a yes or no. The last question here is back to the school board, and it's about curriculum. There has been a lot of learning loss since the pandemic, and I can see it in my kids who go to Frost and Woodson and their classmates and other people who tell stories about it. So the learning loss is real. What type of educational curriculum changes would you make to address learning loss?
Not a problem. So learning loss is huge, and this school board has done nothing for it. We have 21% dropout rate right now for a lot of minorities across the county. We got to do more. And what do? We got to understand where the backbone is. That's the teachers. We got to free them up for needless paperwork that's coming from Gatehouse. I talked to a lot of administrators, talked to a lot of principals, and they say that. They say they're bogged down with paperwork. Now we need to take care of that. We need to release that from them. We need to put the power back into the schools so they can do what they need to do. On the school board, I'm going to ensure that all the schools get all the resources. I'm going to talk with them and say, what do you need from me to make you guys successful? Every teacher knows how to teach. They're a master of their discipline. And we need to do that. Leading from the top, which is Gatehouse and the school board, doesn't work. We lead from the bottom. We support the people on the ground. And we make sure the teachers have those resources. And that's the first step we need to do to solve this problem with learning loss.
I think details matter. And the question was about curriculum. So we're doing a few things already. One, we are shifting the way we do literacy in Fairfax County Public Schools. It is not, previously, it is not how you and I learned how to read. They were focused on whole word, it wasn't phonics and phonemic awareness. And we began 2 years ago with a forum topic that I submitted with Stella Pekarsky, the full transition of our school system with the help of the University of Virginia to a literacy instruction model based on the science of reading, which relies on phonics and phonemic awareness. It is the best way to show growth among readers who are struggling with dyslexia, who are delayed in showing results. It works best for everybody in every year, and it is a huge fundamental transition. Imagine for a moment what it is like to move from a model that everybody is teaching, because that's how they were taught to teach it in school, to something entirely different. And so we are in the middle of that. There was a report at a recent school board meeting from the superintendent showing that that is already having growth on the iReady reports for students. So that's promising. We need to continue that transition. And we also have 2 years worth of data about what is working in our schools to stabilize our numbers. Many schools, Fairfax County is leading the Commonwealth when it comes to closing learning loss gaps from the pandemic, and Providence District schools are leading the county when it comes to numbers. And since we're not going to get another opportunity, I do want to stress that details matter. Why don't we have a Western high school after 2 bonds? That sounds horrible, doesn't it? Well, do you know how much it costs to buy property for a high school? More than 2 bonds. That's why we don't have a Western high school. Do we need one? Absolutely, and that's why we need to continue to put bonds out there that raise the money necessary to buy the property. If we get a Western high school, we can reduce crowding at Oakton High School, and that's critically important because we have students all the way from Sully District coming to Oakton High School. There was a comment about trailers. We've reduced the use of trailers for academics in Providence District by 1/3 over the last 4 years. That is a lot of trailers being removed from our schools. And finally, is anybody clearer tonight in understanding what the LCI is? Anybody? All right. Very quickly, here's why the LCI matters. The local composite index. The local composite index is how they allocate funding for all sorts of things down in Richmond, okay? And part of that is based on the need, percentage-wise versus per capita. And so in Fairfax County, because we have large affluence, even though we have a huge number of people who live in poverty, we get less money back from the Commonwealth for all sorts of things. So when you hear that a big raise has been approved for our educators in Richmond, some counties only have to pony up 50% of the money to take advantage of that raise, the money coming from Richmond. In Fairfax, it's more than 80% of the money has to come from local taxpayers. 80%. And do you know how much it costs to make a 1% raise for all of our staff? $25 million. Holy cow. So details are important to this job. No one is running for king or queen of the school board. The question about what is your day one, I'm gonna ban this, I'm gonna stop that, good luck on a 12-person board doing that on day one. The first thing anybody should do to deliver for their constituents is get to know their colleagues. Because you need 7 votes to get anything done on the school board. And I have delivered for Providence District every year that I've been on the board because I have maintained good, solid relationships with everybody on the board. We're getting a new elementary school. We've remodeled several of our high schools, and Frost is almost finished. I've been up on that roof, believe it or not. I actually got on that roof with Principal Harris. It was frightening. It felt like Starsky and Hutch. But the details matter. So when you talk to your candidates, when they come to your door, or when they talk to you after events or before events, ask them detailed questions and expect detailed results.
All right, Terrence, you have 1 minute. Keep it to 1 minute if you can for your closing summation to respond or anything new. And we'll call the space senators.
Thank you very much. I bear good tidings on the crime scene here. I'm a member of the Senate Subcommittee on Public Safety, and I've taken it as my role to speak with the state police on a regular basis. And today I spoke with Superintendent Gary Settle, who's become a good friend, And the good news is that the preliminary results from 2023 is that crime is down significantly in a large number of categories. We did have some significant increases for several years in a row coming out of the pandemic for whatever reason. Sociologists and psychologists will explain it someday to us. But the biggest problem that we have in this state, I had a bill last year just to make it a traffic offense to have a gun in an unlocked car, a handgun in an unlocked car. And it was killed. And I got it through the Senate, went over to the House of Delegates, and it was killed by the Republican subcommittee. Because they didn't want to punish the gun owner, they wanted to punish the person who we just can't catch sneaking into cars like that in a significant enough number to stop it. But he says every day, a stack of reports on my desk, everybody we pull over and have to search a car has a gun in it. And these are not people who are trained with guns, these are not people with concealed weapons permits, anybody can put them there. It's a huge problem. We had 714 guns stolen from cars in Richmond last year, 3,100 in the Lynchburg area over the past 4 years. We have a huge gun problem in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we need to get it under control. That is what has been driving our violent crime. But the good news is that it's coming down. The good news on inflation is it's down to 3.7. Does it have another 1.4 to go to get it to where we need to be? Yeah, gasoline prices have made it difficult, but we're trending in the right direction. We're $400 million above our revenue forecast for the year. It's a good time to be in Virginia. You're getting refunds from the surplus that we had. We've funded state schools and gotten back to where we were before the Great Recession in 2008. We're in a position now where we're funding mental health. We're getting our school funding back to that level, and we continue to make progress and get this as to where we're one of the best states in the nation for education funding. That's the direction we want to take.
As I mentioned earlier, one of the things I really focus in on is how legislation in Richmond affects the citizens and families in Virginia. I'm running because there was a lot of really bad legislation that was passed in the 2021 season, which are kind of economic ticking time bombs. I want to repeal a lot of that legislation, as does Governor Youngkin. 2 examples: we have joined with California for the electric car mandate. It states that in 2035, 100% of new cars sold in Virginia must be electric. It also states, I know, I'm not for it either. It also states that by 2026, 35% of all cars must be electric. And for those people that clap, do you all have electric cars? I didn't think so. Okay. Yes. So that's number one. Number two, the deceptively named Clean Economy Act, which states that all electric generation in Virginia within the next few years must be green, meaning wind and solar. It's expensive and it's unreliable. And again, it's a ticking time bomb. We in Virginia had the cheapest electric rates in the nation. We are now rapidly going up and it's going to get even worse. So there's a lot of bad legislation. There was also police reform legislation that really was a defund the police legislation. These are the kind of things that we need to repeal. I'd like to go to Virginia and help Governor Youngkin repeal those. Thank you.
So like I mentioned at the beginning, that all 12 school board members were from the same political party, as is the superintendent. And if you haven't noticed, all 10 board of supervisors are also from the same political party. So the whole town is thinking the same and only talking to people who agree with them. And I just don't think that groups function well that way. I am interested in the details. I've introduced myself to Karl tonight because for 3 years he's seen me around and not tried to get to know me. I want you to know that my website dings all day long. I've raised more money than all of the candidates at large, all of them by a lot. And I am looking forward to serving all of you on the school board starting next year. Thank you.
So as you've heard tonight, we've been through several very difficult years as a community, and I am running because I believe it's time to reset, reorient, and rebuild as a school system. I'm running because it's time to bring the joy back to education among our students, among our teachers and professionals, in the buildings and among our community members. I believe in a future where we have universal pre-kindergarten, where we have solar panels on the roofs of every school, where we have mental health services for everyone in our school system, and where we're at or above grade level in all of our subject achievement among our students. So that's why I'm running. Again, I'm running with a team of, with two others, with Ilyong Moon and Kyle McDaniel. I hope that you have 3 votes. I hope you vote for all 3 of us. We will bring experience to the school board, we'll bring empathy to the school board. So I leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. It is past most of our bedtime, so I will keep it brief. Thank you for being here. Dalia Palchik, I really hope to have the honor to continue to serve you on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, where we are 9-1 board. Currently 9 Democrats, 1 Republican. But what really matters is we are a board, and what makes us great is working together, but also working with our colleagues. It has been an honor and a privilege to partner with Karl as our Providence District School Board member, and that's an important one because we fund the schools, they run them. I look forward to working with Ryan again. And last but not least, we absolutely need our senior senator, Dave Marsden, down in Richmond. As you heard, we are fighting every day to keep our funding, to support our schools, to not go backwards on the environment, to not go backwards on women's rights, to not go backwards on mental health support, and to not go backwards on supporting our schools from early childhood all the way to the workforce development. So please look very carefully, as what was said, as to what the candidates offer, and help ensure that we continue to have an excellent team working together and collaboratively here for you in Fairfax County. Thank you.
I'd like to take my cue from Senator Marsden. When he was telling me, he reminded us that Virginia is a Dillon rule state. We have to go to the General Assembly to ask for anything that we want to do that exceeds our existing charter. The other thing that he said that struck me was that we're looking at Tyson's Corner becoming a ghost town, commercial ghost town. My opponents and this 9-1 board's answer seems to be, let's fill it up with subsidized housing, high rises. And that is something that it represents the bigger issue of how they're spending the money that they're collecting in taxes from us. That is an issue that belongs in the state and the federal level. Why are we going to build high-rise subsidized housing? And the scary part that should affect every one of you is that they want to obligate you, not to the full faith and force of the United States Treasury, it's the full faith and force of the taxpayers of Fairfax County. They're going to be building these high-rises. And the history of them has been horrible. Everything from the Pruitt-Igoe in St. Louis, to the Cabrini Green in Chicago, to the Inner Harbor of Baltimore, to the Blackwell in Richmond, they have proven to be abject failures. I would like to bring the idea that we have not concentrating people of lower economic means in ghettos, but that we give them opportunities. I think there's an economic imperialism that we're assuming that young people don't share our same values of wealth building through real estate ownership. And so we need to, if you talk about affordable, let's make it affordable for young people who are just starting out to get some place to live and get to build their equity. And let's start out with people let's just not assume that if they come from another country, they simply don't understand the dynamics of wealth creation. They came to America for that very reason. And yet we're going to assume that they don't know what they're doing. We're going to assume the mantle of the federal government, and that's way beyond the issue of the Dillon rule. It's way beyond our perspective. It's way beyond spending the money that your hard-earned money, that they keep increasing the taxes, in a way that benefits you directly, benefits the community directly, gives us the ability to deal with issues among ourselves that have risen up in the community. And so if I'm elected, What I intend to do is restore some semblance of sanity to the way they're spending our money. Thank you.
All right. I can't let attacks on climate change initiatives go unanswered. But let me just say this. I have been one of the leading supporters on our school board of making sure that we are energy conscious in our school system. And I have been attacked mercilessly for it because I like bringing in electric buses, I like solar panels, I like net zero. But here's the thing, you don't have to believe in the science of climate change that virtually every scientist believes to know that it's a good idea to do these things. We are saving $10 million a year in our energy conservation efforts in these schools every single year, and that's money that goes right back into the classroom for student success. Speaking of, and the kids love the Tesla buses. That's what they call them. They're super quiet, and they're super clean, and they take less money to keep up, and they haven't cost us any more money because of grants. So, I say details matter because that's what this job is all about. I walk the halls of these schools. This school in particular, and Frost, and Woodson. People in Mantua know me. Many of you have yard signs for me in your homes. You need somebody who is focused on the ball, and that is me making a sports reference. It's unusual. And that's what I'm focused on, is getting things done for our community. Because like I said, when push comes to shove, you need 7 votes on this board. And everybody is after the same dollars. So you have to have working relationships with the people on the school board in order to compromise, find agreement, and get the things that your school district needs. And I've been doing that for 4 years on the school board, particularly in this area, and I'd like your votes. I hope I've earned your vote. And if I haven't, I'd love to talk to you about it.
You know, we talked a lot about details, and details does matter. So let's talk about some details that's happening. Let's talk about insufficient security. Let's talk about this school board using your tax dollars to pay lawyers to cover up rape victims that come forward. They're pushing what is called a one rape rule, where if it doesn't deem a certain level, you could get away with it. Let's talk about details on that. Let's talk about some more details. Let's talk about the detail of 21% dropout rate and where our school board is doing it. Where supporters of the school board at a board meeting a couple months ago said the reason why our SAT scores are low is because, I quote from the person, because kids from low-income families have free access to take the test. Let's talk about some more details. Let's talk about teachers. Teachers have to drive over an hour because they can't afford to live in the county they live in, or work in, I'm sorry. Let's talk about the pay to imbalance. We have Gatehouse, high officials in Gatehouse, making more than congressmen and senators, where our superintendent makes $20,000 less than the President of the United States. So we hear all these wonderful things that we're going to do. But when we go back down to it, let's talk about those details. Let's talk about the teachers. Let's talk about the imbalance. Let's talk about protecting our kids, doing what's right. Let's talk about stopping this nonsense. And that's what I tend to do. Bring common sense and concentrate on those details and make sure that that's transparent to every single person that I represent. And it's just not Providence, it's the whole county. Thank you.
Candidates, thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause for all of our candidates? Thank you. I'll turn it back to Sue to close the meeting.
I'd like to thank everyone who came here. We have a right and a privilege. It's really important to vote. And I want all of you to take a look at these posters. Remember, this is a school, but these are the kids who will be the adults in 20 years. They're going to be voting. And look at the things that they're writing. Be kind, work hard, be the light in the darkness. I have a 6-year-old grandson who goes to a school near here. He gets awards for being kind, and I told him it's more important to be kind than smart. Well, Tell that to a 6-year-old and see what reaction you get. Thank you all. Be kind. Do good work. Good luck to everybody. We appreciate you coming here. Thank you for everyone.